Hey guys, so due to copyright, I had to cut out a large portion of the video that I was actually pretty proud of for the video to go up on YouTube at all. So I am sorry about that. The full unaltered video can be found on my Patreon for anyone in my $1 or higher tiers. I hope you can still enjoy this video, and I'm sorry for what you have to miss.
Hey, would you help me out? I'm very gay. I'd like a few dollars.
You know, I tend to ask myself dumb questions. If I was a pie, what flavour would it be? Do the people in stock photos keep in touch after the job's over? Are they friends? Have they ever established a moment of emotional clarity and connection with someone else destined to be used and forgotten by the world at large that transcends payment and career? Is the Venn diagram between monster fucker and furry just a circle? But it was during the writing of my Has Been Hotel review that I found myself asking a different question. Why do we seem so enamored with writing redeemable monsters and humanizing the demons? Why do we have sympathy for the devil? I'm not the only one who's noticed this, yeah? That there's something of a trend to write the demonic as more human and relatable than simply evil. And for the record, I'm not criticizing this trend. I actually really enjoy it, and I'm genuinely curious about it. And it's definitely not a universal trope either. Pure evil demons and devils are absolutely the norm, but it's something I think might be fun to talk about. Also, I should probably mention that while I'm not personally religious, I do find religion and theology fascinating, and I greatly enjoy discussing them. Right, so let me establish a few things before I start. First, I'm not talking about all monstrous characters, I'm specifically looking at those that are demonic/satanic in nature or coding. Second, I'll be using devil and demon pretty interchangeably, so I really don't want to see any comments about how they're different, or how one character is technically one more than the other, because I really don't care. Finally, I think it's important to establish the difference between sympathy and empathy. Because, despite the name of the video, I'm more interested in the media that asks us not just to sympathise, but to empathise with the demonic as well. Simply put, sympathy is our ability to feel sorry for a character, to feel compassion or pity for them. Empathy is our ability to put ourselves in their situation and understand things from their point of view. I'll get into it more later when it becomes relevant, so let's jump right in, starting with, well, possibly the first published piece of media to portray the literal devil from the Bible as sympathetic, Paradise Lost. Now, Paradise Lost is interesting, not just because it's an epic poem written in English and Bible fanfiction on par with Dante's Inferno, but it's also where we get a lot of the details we associate with Satan-esque figures. Dark and brooding, daddy issues, and of course, sexy as hell. Pun intended, fuck you. If you want a good summary, Overly Sarcastic Productions has a great video on it. I'll link to it down below. A good majority of it is told from Satan's point of view, portraying him as more of a spirited rebel fighting against an unjust tyrant. In fact, many stories in this vein call either God or heaven's benevolence into question, which relates to a fairly common debate in theological philosophy, the question of if free will can truly coexist with the concept of an omniscient, omnipotent God, and what that kind of control even says about God to begin with. The question of the great plan gnaws at the mind, of whether any of us can truly be free if someone has already planned out the entirety of everything and has the power to enforce it. In this way, Satan can be seen as a noble renegade, fighting against the shackles of divine guidance. Speaking of the great plan, let's briefly talk about Good Omens, Neil Gaiman's Antichrist switcheroo gay shipping fun time. I hope that didn't make it sound like I hate the show. I actually really like it, though I haven't gotten around to watching season 2 yet. The demonic can be split into two categories in Good Omens, Crowley and then all the others. Crowley himself plays an interesting role as a satanic figure, being the actual snake that tempted Eve into eating the apple, but spending basically the rest of the series suffering through his romance arc with the Aziraphale, ending up doing more good than evil. Indeed, the show makes him come across as more of a trickster archetype instead of truly malevolent, and he's one of the most likeable and surprisingly emotional characters in the cast, even more so than the children. His relationship to his angel serves to humanise him quite well, and it's made pretty clear that he's nowhere near as bad as he pretends to be. What's interesting is that the show portrays demons as a whole as being just one side of the divine bureaucracy. Sure are they working to end the world, but so are the angels, due to it supposedly being all part of God's plan. Heaven and hell even inhabit the same building, which is a unique take that I've only ever seen in one other place, and Aziraphale and Crowley aren't even the only angel and demon pair to fall in love, though I risk unnecessary spoilers if I go much further. In all honesty, the denizens of hell come across more as shitty co-workers than actual adversaries. An interesting take to be sure. So no, the other place I saw this concept in is in the manhwa Oh My Gods, which is hilarious and you should totally read it. If we're talking about God's plan though, then that means I have to talk about... God damn it. I had to watch fucking Lucifer for this video, I hope you're happy. I finally swallowed my pride and gave it a watch. I'd never been interested in it. The trailer and the description always gave me the vibe that it was just a boring but basically competent, hyper straight show for people who were super horny for Tom Ellis. But you know what, viewer? After watching the first season, I found out that I was actually wrong. It is so much worse. Oh my god, this show is so fucking mid. It doesn't excel at anything, it's not even memorably bad. It's just so annoyingly barely competent with almost nothing of actual interest. And Lucifer is the absolute worst part. Maybe he gets better in later seasons, but I'll never know, and I super don't care because I hate this smarmy twat. 90% of his personality is just that the word straight could give you the DreamWorks eyebrow and sexually harass women, and the rest is daddy issues. The only characters I ended up liking were Chloe and her daughter, but I could tell from episode 1 that they were going to ruin it eventually with a boring and forced romance subplot. The show did get a couple chuckles out of me, but the biggest laugh I got when I was checking the episode descriptions and it called Lucifer charming. Like, no he fucking isn't. He's about as charming as a damp sponge with a smug face drawn on it. I think the writers forgot that being attractive and being charming are not the same fucking thing. God, okay, tirade over, focus on the video writing. So, Lucifer separates itself from the other shows by asking us not just to root for him, he is the protagonist after all, but to empathize with his plight. What I actually liked about the show was how it explored the popular notion of Satan as the source of all evil, as opposed to his depiction in the show. Our hero Lucifer, stop laughing, is far closer in spirit to his counterpart in Paradise Lost, a struggling and flawed soul rebelling against an unfair and overly restrictive system. He makes bargains and encourages people to indulge in their basic desires, but his true role in hell was that of a punisher of evil, not its source. He's actually shown to suffer quite a bit of anguish from the knowledge that people blame him for their own actions, and despite the fact that I absolutely hate this man and am content to never touch the series again, I did feel for him there. The show repeatedly makes the point that our decisions are all our own, and I honestly really like this about it. I've never liked the idea of some kind of ultimate source of evil you can blame all your problems on. I think it's just a convenient excuse to avoid taking responsibility for your actions, something I have a particular disdain for. In a similar vein to Lucifer, we have the Omen twins Morgoth and Mohg from Elden Ring. In Elden Ring, the Omen are cursed beings born with aspects of an older power, usually taking the form of twisted, gnarled horns. The Omens are reviled for this, and are usually killed as children as their horns are excised, and even those who live are hunted for sport or locked away, treated as monsters or demons. But Morgoth and Mohg were different, for they were born of the highest nobility, the children of a god called Queen Marika, and as such were allowed to keep their horns and were merely locked away. And while Morgoth would lament his cursed blood, Mohg would find new purpose in it, and he would eventually strive to create his own dynasty. Dynasty! Through the power of blood. Mohg has more in common with Lucifer than almost any other character on this list, being the powerful demigod son of a god of light and supposed goodness, with twisting horns and a trident weapon. He even has black feathered wings, and his blood ignites in a terrible hellfire that boils the blood in your body and causes it to burst, hemorrhaging your insides and weakening you as you battle him. He is as a fallen angel, seeking to corrupt the innocence of others, even kidnapping and engaging in a heavily implied incestuous relationship with his half-brother, Mikola, who is somewhat Christ-like in depiction. As vile as Mohg is though, you can see how he was driven to his madness, how the abuse and neglect he suffered as the result of being born incompatible with the divine plan has warped him. You kind of have to pity him, for in the end, all he truly wanted was a place to belong, a home that couldn't be taken away. None of this is an excuse of course, but if ever there was a devil that should stir your sympathy, it would be for the Omen Mohg. Had he just been born normal, he could have lived a much happier life. As happy as you could be in a FromSoft game, I mean. Speaking of FromSoft games, the demons in the Dark Souls series have an interesting narrative throughline, as the demons were born at the bed of chaos, when the Witch of Izalith attempted to use her flame of life to rekindle the first flame, only for it to spiral out of control and create a whole new race. In the first game, demons aren't uncommon, and you battle quite a few, including the bed of chaos itself. In Dark Souls 2, demons are next to unheard of though, and the few you do see have little to no relation to the origin of demons at all, being either born of or made by humans. And in Dark Souls 3, we finally find out why. Without the bed of chaos, the demon race is slowly going extinct, with the fire that fuels their life force slowly fading. You can actually find the ruins of Lost Izalith, that impossibly ancient demon city of legend, and their long dead corpses are piled high, with barely any remaining. You are essentially trespassing on a mass grave, and in the end, you strike down the old demon king in a room filled with mountains of those he once ruled. He can't even put up much of a fight, as old and worn out as he is, and the final moments of the fight are spent with him panting on the ground, unable to even lift his weapon in defense. There's a poignant tragedy to it all, one that just doesn't hit you unless you really stop to think about it. Demons in the Bayonetta series follow another interesting trend, in that they gain more depth as the series progresses. In the first game, demons have no personality to speak of and exist only as giant monsters that you can summon to finish off your enemies. As an Umbra Witch, Bayonetta has made a pact with many demons and can summon them using her hair as a medium, though this partnership is not entirely equal. She's required to kill angels every day or she'll be dragged to hell, and the same fate awaits her regardless of how many angels she sends down south when she eventually dies. The demons are merely tools in the first game, but also an ever-present threat, a sword of Damocles mostly joked about, but also constantly reminding you of their presence. When you're low on health in the series, demonic arms claw at the edge of your screen, and if you give up after dying, you're treated to a scene of the helpless witch being pulled into the underworld. The relationship changes in the second game, however, as the demons grow in complexity. Sure, you can still summon them, but Bayo's go-to executioner, Gamora, breaks its contract, destroying the city and killing Jean, forcing you to put it down. But some demons, like Bayonetta's primary contract demon, Madama Butterfly, stay loyal, and the savage but beautiful demoness is implied to be on surprisingly good terms with the Umbra Witch, even sharing a fist bump. This game also expands on demon lore, and you learn that many demons were once residents of our world who either died and were sent to hell, or got stuck there and transformed to fit their environment. Madama Butterfly is even implied to have been murdered, and another demon, Alarone, was sent to hell for committing suicide. They're still cruel monsters, there's no denying that, but they're revealed to be more complex, and many are a far cry from the unintelligent, snarling beasts they're presented as in the first game. This reaches its peak in Bayonetta 3, the game being a climax in many ways. Travelling the multiverse, you meet the contracted demons of alternate Bayonettas, and you find them to actually hold fondness and loyalty for their masters. Familiar faces that take a particular fondness for Bayonetta Prime.
What's this tiny thing? I thought I smelled some decent bread, but it's just an ugly witch.
Ugly, you say? With all those eyes, I'd think you'd be a bit more perceptive.
Keep ruffling, woman. Maybe I'll just stop you right now. You're a tough one, aren't you? Reminds me of the master. Alright. It seems like the strands of fate bind us. I'll stick with you for a while.
Or even beg her for help in saving their mistress, revealing a closeness and care never seen before.
Well, of course. That's why I've come. I've always wanted to rescue the Lady Fair.
I must thank you, noble witch.
Save the audition. Time is short.
But the true outlier in this game comes in the form of Viola and her demon, Cheshire. Unlike any demon before, Cheshire isn't even contracted to Viola, instead acting more as her goofy partner and appearing anytime she calls for help. The in-game description even says he's more like her friend, and you definitely get that impression, especially in the part where she collapses in the desert and he carries her until he can find water to save her life. I have to stress, literally no other demon, not even the ones on very good terms with their partners, ever do anything remotely close to this. Cheshire's relationship with Viola remains a mystery, one to hopefully be solved in a future game. What motivates creatures whose very nature inspires them to hate and kill and destroy to suddenly care for another being? What is it that can make someone rise above their nature and become a protector, even if it's just for one person? What brings out the human element in a creature so tainted by evil and violence that they've all but forgotten what it meant to be human at all? Well, Castlevania would posit it to be love. While the animated Castlevania series does have more stereotypical demons in it, most of them are called night creatures, and they're created by human mages known as Forge Masters, who invite the spirits of the damned into dead bodies and transform them into monstrous servants. But even these creatures are more complex than they first appear. Isaac, a powerful Forge Master with a burning hatred for humans, is ironically the one to coax the long-forgotten humanity from them. In a rare scene of pure gentleness and understanding, we see Isaac convince a night creature of its own sense of autonomy and self, and it's honestly quite beautiful.
It's not blood or meat, but you don't appear to have died from it. I'll answer your question. This city was once home to many hundreds of people, perhaps more. It could be resettled. Once the bodies are buried, the debris is disposed of, and the structures are repaired. We will be moving on soon. After we're gone, the city will be here for people to find and make homes in. Would you like another berry?
I think so.
Take one. You see, you can use a hammer to build a house, or crack a skull. You are returned to Earth as tools, and I will use tools as I wish.
So many memories.
I can also choose, in the end, to recognize that you are not tools at all. For no tool would taste a berry and remember the time in its first life when it encountered them.
But we are creatures of hell, to be commanded to fight.
One day, hell will be emptied and its doors will rattle in the wind.
What?
Through my hand, God lifts the damned from hell in his mercy to enact their penance on the earth as my soldiers.
Yes.
Should their penance on earth be eternal too?
I do not know.
Neither do I. We should find out together. In the meantime, we can both do a little more than what we were intended for.
Castlevania Nocturne takes it even further with the inclusion of Edouard, an opera singer murdered by vampires and transformed to a night creature by a fell machine. Edouard never loses his humanity, and it's actually through his own recollection of his life and his song that he helps others to reconnect to theirs, and in doing so, provides aid in the fight against oppression. Nocturne is really good. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on the show, I made a video on how the show handles the topics of slavery and oppression. I'm honestly still really proud of it, so I'll link to it down below and also put the thing in the corner. If you guys would check it out, I'd really appreciate it. Sorry, back to the essay. Interestingly, Castlevania also has a devil-coded character in Dracula himself. Actually, in the lore of the game series, he is their Satan equivalent. It's complicated, but he's a fascinating exploration of both the redemptive and destructive potential of love. The first animated Castlevania begins with him meeting Lisa, and the two fall in love and even have a child together, and it's his love for her that drives him to grow more as a person, embracing his own humanity and attempting to understand humans more. But then, the church happens. Lisa is accused of being a witch and is taken to be burned at the stake, and this marks the downfall of the nation. Lisa begs them not to do this, that he's done so well and come so far, and later uses her final breath to beg him not to take revenge, that they don't know what they're doing. But when he finds out,
What have you done?
Satan!
What have you done to my wife?
In nomine Patris et Filii.
I am Vlad Dracula Tepesh. You will tell me why this thing has happened to my wife.
Oh no! Oh God! Dracula! He was supposed to be myth. A story made up by heretics. She's a witch.
Lisa Tepesh was a woman of the sciences, and the one thing that justified humanity's stench upon this planet.
You are not real. You are a fiction that justified the practice of black magic.
Fiction? You take my wife and deny I even exist. I give you 1 year, Wallachins. You have 1 year to make your peace and remove any marks you have made upon the land. 1 year, and then I'll wipe all human life from the land of Wallachia. You took that which I love, so I will take from you everything you have, and everything you have ever been. 1 year.
His tenuous connection to humanity is shattered and he begins his planning. And he warns them, he gives them a fair warning. And then they hold a fucking celebration on the anniversary of his wife's burning. And you know what? They completely deserve what happens next.
One year. I gave you 1 year to make your peace with your God. And what do? Celebrate the day you killed my wife. 1 year I gave you while I assembled my armies. And now I bring your death. You have your chance.
The true, inescapable tragedy of Castlevania is that Dracula's love is what both saved and damned him. And through the entirety of Season 2 until his death, Dracula is nothing but an empty husk, killed by his own heartache and intent on taking the rest of the world with him. The Church of Targovishta created their own devil and ultimately orchestrated their own downfall. And then the viewer is left to empathize with the broken man behind the genocide. Which you probably will, because their show is fucking incredible, and its writing is impeccable. If you haven't already, you need to go watch it. And I need to get around to making a video on it at some point. Goddamn, I've got so many things to work on. What might be even more interesting than a sympathetic devil though, is a show that tells you that you're an idiot for even trying to find humanity in the demonic. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about Freerun again. I'm going to spare you my usual extended spiel about how good the show is and actually stay on topic for once. This time, go watch the anime, it's really fucking good. The demons in Soso no Freerun are interesting. You can very easily attribute humanity to them, and in fact, they actively encourage you to. It's just that this is a trap. Freerun's demons are very nearly indistinguishable from humans, and that's entirely by design. They evolved to hunt humans more efficiently, and the best way to do that is to appear human. However, the most insidious thing about them is their ability to act as human. Many demons have learned how to play on human emotions, specifically targeting our sense of empathy to disarm us, which often works to devastating effect. It is, however, entirely impossible for them to relate to us in the same way that we can to them. They fundamentally do not understand our relationships or even our emotional attachments. This is best demonstrated in the following scene, which I'll let speak for itself. This show outright tells you that if you try to sympathize with demons, you are a fool. There are even demons, much later in the story, that want to cultivate a peaceful understanding with humans, but their very nature makes it impossible. The show understands our proclivity to sympathize with and connect to other creatures, especially the monstrous, and it takes every opportunity to whap you on the forehead with a stick and call you an idiot for trying. For the record, I don't think this is any better or worse than how any of the other games or shows handle their demons. I just think it's a clever subversion. So, why do we sympathize with the devil? Why do we empathize with the demons and humanize the horrors? Well, look, I think there are a few reasons for it, and one of which being summed up by the phrase, "If evil, why hot?" I'm not even joking here. Humans have a propensity for associating beauty and attractiveness with goodness, and it's fairly common for people to give into that attraction and set objective reality aside. But I find that interpretation to be dismissive and honestly a little callous. It might explain it for some people, but a tiny amount. The second possibility is, well, you might be LGBT. It's no secret that members of the community tend to sympathize with the monstrous, the outcast, and the blasphemous, and that stems from our own treatment and lived experiences. LGBT people are often treated as others, as being inherently wrong in the eyes of either society or God, and And while that's begun to change, the feeling is still there. The sense of isolation from your peers and even your family members. Differences in gender and sexuality, while realistically a very small issue, are treated as something fundamentally important by some, and it leads to ostracization and persecution. And that's not even mentioning the religious aspect. The LGBTs are treated very similarly to the devil, as an evil to be defeated and a corrupting influence to be mitigated, to be stamped out. Is it any wonder that we look at the devils and demons, at the monsters of media, with a certain kinship? I do think this is a very likely reason, but I also think I may be onto something with a third possibility, and that is that humans are hopeful by nature. Beyond just a kinship, I think we see something in the fallen angels and lowborn demons, a mirror unto ourselves. No one is without sin. We've all made mistakes or simply made the wrong choice, and we all have things we wish we could take back, regrets for past actions or for the things we never did, and everybody wishes for forgiveness and connection. Who among us has never been brought low by life and desperately wished that someone would reach out to us in a kind offer of shared strength? How many nights have you lain awake in bed wishing someone was there for you, that someone might hug you tight and say, "I see what you're going through and I'm here for you when you need me"? I think this is what lies at the heart of our sympathy for the devil. The knowledge that we could very well be in his place, that we might already have been there. There'll come a time when all we'll be able to do when we're faced with the violent storm of our lives and a world outside our control is to reach out for someone who cares. And I hope you have that, viewer. I hope when the time comes, you have that someone who'll pick you up, dust you off, and give you the help you'll need. Hey guys, thanks for watching. This video was brought to you by the lovely people whose names are climbing up the screen, with special thanks to Lustrous Lizard and Owen Oofs for their support. If you like my videos and can spare the money, want to consider donating to my Patreon to help me afford the cost of not being homeless. Being alive is expensive. I wasn't entirely sure where I was going when I started writing this. I kind of just wanted to work through my thoughts on the subject and try to wrangle something out of it that made some vague form of sense. I'm not sure how well I succeeded there, but at least I had some fun with it, and I hope you did too. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed listening to my nonsense, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!